I remember the exact moment my world fell apart. It was a Tuesday. The air in my kitchen felt heavy, thick with the words I couldn't take back. My mom, Susan, was just standing there. Her face went blank, like I'd pulled the plug on her soul. I told her she didn't belong in my house. I told her I worked for it, not her. She just looked at me, her eyes glassy, and whispered, "I'm sorry, Brian. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." Then she turned and walked away. The sound of her bedroom door closing was the quietest, most final sound I'd ever heard. I stood there in the silence, my heart pounding, convinced I was right. This was my empire. I built it from nothing. Or so I thought. Let me rewind. Let me tell you how I got here. My name is Brian Matthews. I'm 36, a real estate broker in Dallas. I wear expensive suits and drive a German car. My whole life, I've been about the grind. My dad died 2 years ago. It was sudden, a heart attack. He was the quiet type, always working with his hands. After he was gone, my mom, Susan, was left in this little apartment. It started having problems, leaky pipes, faulty wiring. I'm her only son, so I did the right thing. I told her she could move in with me, just temporarily, just until the repairs were done. My house is my pride and joy, a modern 3-bedroom and a nice suburb. Everything is gray and white, clean lines, minimalist. It screams success. My mom arrived with 2 suitcases and a cardboard box full of photo albums. She's 62, with soft gray hair and this gentle way of talking. She's the kind of person who remembers your coworker's cat's name. At first, it was fine. She'd make coffee in the morning, we'd talk about the weather. But then the little things started to get under my skin. She'd water my fiddle leaf feet plant at 10 p.m. "It's thirsty, Brian," she'd say. She rearranged the throw pillows on my expensive sofa. She'd fluff them into a different shape. I'd come home from a long day of closing deals, and the living room felt different. It felt like her space, not mine. Then there were my clients. I sometimes have meetings at the house. It impresses people. My mom would appear from the hallway. "Oh, are you buying a house?" she'd ask them. "Do you have children? You know, Brian used to build forts out of couch cushions." She'd smile, so genuine, but I'd see the confusion on my clients' faces. This wasn't the sleek, professional image I was selling. My girlfriend, Nicole, noticed it too. Nicole is sharp, ambitious. She works in marketing. She started staying over less. "Brian," she told me one night, her voice low, "your mom, she makes the house feel old. It smells like lavender and slow cookers. It doesn't feel like us." And I agreed. I felt it too. This was my sanctuary, my proof that I'd made it, and now it was being taken over by memories and mothballs. The tension built for weeks. It was a slow boil. I'd come home and my mom would be humming some old song in the kitchen. The sound would grate on me. I'd see a new ceramic owl on the mantel, a thrift store find, and my jaw would clench. I stopped seeing her as my mom. I started seeing her as a problem, an inconvenience in my perfectly curated life. The night I exploded, it was over nothing, absolutely nothing. I couldn't find a specific contract I needed for the next morning. I was turning the office upside down. My mom walked in and said, "I think I moved some papers to tidy up. They might be in the hall closet." That was it. That was the spark. I just lost it. All the frustration, the irritation, the feeling that my space was being invaded, it all came pouring out. I didn't yell at first. My voice was cold, like steel. "What did you do with them?" I asked. She looked startled. "I was just trying to help, honey." And then I said it. The words I can never, ever take back. I looked her right in the eye and I said, "You don't belong here, Mom. This is my house. I worked for it, not you." The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Her face, it just crumbled. It wasn't anger. It was a deep, profound hurt. She looked at me like she didn't even know me. And she just apologized. She apologized for making me uncomfortable, after I had just ripped her heart out. She turned and walked to her room, her shoulders slumped. The door clicked shut. I stood there, adrenaline coursing through me. I was right. I had to be right. This was my house. I paced the living room, my mind racing. I needed to cool off. I poured a glass of water, my hands shaking. That's when I saw it. A simple manila folder left open on the kitchen counter. It was out of place. My mom must have been looking at it earlier. I walked over, curious. I flipped it open. Inside were property documents, the deed, the mortgage papers, the homeowner's insurance. I scanned them, my broker's brain automatically processing the information. And then I saw it. At the bottom of the deed, the signature line, owner, Susan A. Matthews. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. That couldn't be right. This was a mistake. I bought this house. I remembered the down payment. My mom had given me $50,000. A gift, she said, for my future. I was so proud. I never questioned it. My hands were trembling now. I pulled out my phone, my heart hammering against my ribs. I scrolled back through years of text messages with my mom. I found the thread. There it was. Me. Mom, I can't accept this. Her. Please, let me do this for you. It's a gift. I kept scrolling, my vision blurring. I found an old email from the title company. I'd been so excited I'd barely read it. I opened it now, and there it was, clear as day. The funds for the purchase were wired from an account under her name. She didn't give me a gift. She bought the house. She was the owner. This whole time, for years, I'd been living in her house, paying her mortgage with my monthly payments. I was just a tenant who had just evicted his own landlord. I sank into a chair at the kitchen table, the papers spreading out around me like evidence at a crime scene. The lights in the house seemed to dim. I could feel the blood drain from my face. My empire, my proof that I was self-made. It was a lie. A lie she let me live because she loved me, and I had just thrown it in her face. From down the hall, I heard a door open and then close again. A soft, final echo. I didn't look up. I couldn't. I just sat there, surrounded by the truth, and I had no idea if she was coming back or if she was gone for good. I keep wondering how many other people have had their realities shattered by a piece of paper. I feel so alone in this big, empty house that was never really mine. I'm just sitting here, staring at these documents, trying to figure out how to breathe. I wonder how far this story will go. Comment below what city you're listening from, just so I know I'm not completely alone in this. The silence after she left was the loudest thing I've ever heard. It wasn't just quiet, it was heavy. It pressed down on me. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock on the wall, my own heartbeat in my ears. I stood in the middle of my living room, her living room, and my whole body was vibrating. I was so sure I was right, so convinced that my anger was justified. This was my space, my achievement. I built this life from the ground up. I remembered clenching my fists, my nails digging into my palms. The taste of copper was in my mouth. I must have bitten my cheek. I started pacing, back and forth, on the expensive hardwood floors I'd picked out myself, or thought I had. Each step echoed. The gray walls I'd paid a premium to have painted felt like they were closing in. I went to the kitchen sink and splashed cold water on my face. The water felt sharp, shocking. I leaned against the counter, my head down, trying to get my breathing under control. That's when I saw the folder. It was a simple tan manila folder. It was open, sitting right next to fruit bowl. It was out of place. My mom must have been looking through it before our fight. She was always organizing something. I dried my hands on a towel, my movements slow, almost robotic. I reached out and flipped the folder open. My broker's brain, always on, started scanning the documents. Property deed, mortgage statement, insurance paperwork, standard stuff. I'd seen 1,000 of these. I almost closed it, but something made me look closer. I picked up the deed. It was the original, thick paper. I skimmed the legal description of the property. The address was right, my address. My eyes drifted down to the bottom, to the signature lines, and I saw it. Owner, Susan A. Matthews. The words didn't make sense at first. They were just letters on a page. I blinked. I read them again. My brain stuttered like a faulty engine. Susan A. Matthews. That's my mom. I shook my head. No, this was a copy, an old copy, maybe from the initial offer. But the date was current. The filing stamp was from 3 years ago, when I bought the house. A cold dread started in my stomach and spread outwards, turning my hands to ice. My heart wasn't hammering anymore. It felt like it had stopped completely. This wasn't right. I remembered it all so clearly. Finding the house, making the offer, the down payment. My mom had given me $50,000. A generous gift from my parents' savings, she said. After my dad died, it was her way of helping me start my life. I was so grateful, so proud to tell people I'd done it on my own, with a little family help. My hands started to shake. The paper rattled in my grip. I put it down on the counter and fumbled for my phone in my pocket. My fingers were clumsy, numb. I opened my text messages. I scrolled back through years of conversations with my mom. The green and white bubbles blurred together. I found it. The week I closed on the house. There was my text. Mom, the $50K hit the account. I can't thank you enough. This is too much. Her reply? Don't be silly. It's a gift. Your father would be so proud. This is your house now. A gift. She said it was a gift. I always read that as her giving me the money. But the words were careful, weren't they? This is your house now, not you own this house now. She never said that. I opened my email. My throat was tight. It was hard to swallow. I searched for the closing documents. I found the email from the title company with the subject line, Closing Funds Confirmation. I'd been so excited that day, I just skimmed it. I opened it now and read every word. And there it was, halfway down, a line I must have glossed over. Wire transfer received, $385,000. Source, Matthews, Susan A. Account ending in 1142. It wasn't just the down payment, it was the whole thing. The entire purchase price came from her account. My monthly mortgage payments, I was just paying her back, with interest. I was a tenant, a bank customer. My mom was my lender and my landlord. I stumbled back from the counter and sank into one of the kitchen chairs. The wood felt hard and cold. I spread the papers out on the table in front of me. The deed, the mortgage, the insurance. It was all her name, Susan A. Matthews. Every single one. This whole life I'd built, this fortress of success I hid inside, it was built on a foundation she laid. And I never knew. She never let me know. She let me have my pride. She let me strut around this house talking about my hard work when she was the one who made it possible. I looked around the kitchen. The stainless steel appliances I'd been so proud of, the subway tile backsplash. It all looked different now. Fake. It wasn't my taste. It was the taste of a person pretending to be something he wasn't. A self-made man living in his mother's house. From down the hall, I heard a sound. Her bedroom door opened. I didn't look up. I couldn't face her. I heard soft footsteps. Then the sound of the front door opening. A pause. And then it closed. Not a slam, a quiet, precise click. The sound of a door locking. I just sat there, in the silence she left behind, surrounded by the proof of my own ignorance, my arrogance. The house was so still, so empty. I had gotten what I wanted. I had the house to myself again. And it felt like the most hollow victory in the world. I keep wondering how many other people are living inside a lie they created for themselves. I'm sitting here in Dallas, in a house that owns me more than I own it. I'm trying to even move from this chair. I wonder how many of you have ever had a truth hit you so hard it changes the air you breathe. Let me know what city you're in. Tell me I'm not the only one sitting in the dark, rethinking every single thing I thought was true. The silence after she left was the loudest thing I've ever heard. It wasn't just quiet, it was heavy. It pressed down on me. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock on the wall, my own heartbeat in my ears. I stood in the middle of my living room, her living room, and my whole body was vibrating. I was so sure I was right, so convinced that my anger was justified. This was my space, my achievement. I built this life from the ground up. I remember clenching my fists, my nails digging into my palms. The taste of copper was in my mouth. I must have bitten my cheek. I started pacing back and forth on the expensive hardwood floors I picked out myself, or thought I had. Each step echoed. The gray walls I'd paid a premium to have painted felt like they were closing in. I went to the kitchen sink and splashed cold water on my face. The water felt sharp, shocking. I leaned against the counter, my head down, trying to get my breathing under control. That's when I saw the folder. It was a simple tan manila folder. It was open, sitting right next the fruit bowl. It was out of place. My mom must have been looking through it before our fight. She was always organizing something. I dried my hands on a towel, my movements slow, almost robotic. I reached out and flipped the folder open. My broker's brain, always on, started scanning the documents. Property deed, mortgage statement, insurance paperwork, standard stuff. I'd seen 1,000 of these. I almost closed it, but something made me look closer. I picked up the deed. It was the original, thick paper. I skimmed the legal description of the property. The address was right, my address. My eyes drifted down to the bottom, to the signature lines, and I saw it. Owner, Susan A. Matthews. The words didn't make sense at first. They were just letters on a page. I blinked. I read them again. My brain stuttered like a faulty engine. Susan A. Matthews? That's my mom. I shook my head. No, this was a copy, an old copy, maybe from the initial offer. But the date was current. The filing stamp was from 3 years ago, when I bought the house. A cold dread started in my stomach and spread outwards, turning my hands to ice. My heart wasn't hammering anymore. It felt like it had stopped completely. This wasn't right. I remembered it all so clearly, finding the house, making the offer, the down payment. My mom had given me $50,000, a generous gift from my parents' savings, she said. After my dad died, it was her way of helping me start my life. I was so grateful, so proud to tell people I'd done it on my own, with a little family help. My hands started to shake. The paper rattled in my grip. I put it down on the counter and fumbled for my phone in my pocket. My fingers were clumsy, numb. I opened my text messages. I scrolled back through years of conversations with my mom. The green and white bubbles blurred together. I found it, the week I closed on the house. There's my text. Mom, the $50K hit the account. I can't thank you enough. This is too much. Her reply, don't be silly. It's a gift. Your father would be so proud. This is your house now. A gift? She said it was a gift. I always read that as her giving me the money. But the words were careful, weren't they? This is your house now. Not, you own this house now. I opened my email. My throat was tight. It was hard to swallow. I searched for the closing documents. I found the email from the title company with the subject line, "Closing Funds Confirmation." I'd been so excited that day, I'd just skimmed it. I opened it now and read every word. And there it was, halfway down, a line I must have glossed over. Wire transfer received, $385,000. Source, Matthews, Susan A. Account ending in 1142. It wasn't just the down payment. It was the whole thing. The entire purchase price came from her account. My monthly mortgage payments, I was just paying her back, with interest. I was a tenant, a bank customer. My mom was my lender, and my landlord. I stumbled back from the counter and sank into one of the kitchen chairs. The wood felt hard and cold. I spread the papers out on the table in front of me. The deed, the mortgage, the insurance. It was all her name, Susan A. Matthews, every single one. This whole life I'd built, this fortress of success I hid inside, it was built on a foundation she laid, and I never knew. She never let me know. She let me have my pride. She let me strut around this house, talking about my hard work, when she was the one who made it possible. I looked around the kitchen. The stainless steel appliances I've been so proud of. The subway tile backsplash. It all looked different now. Fake. It wasn't my taste. It was the taste of a person pretending to be something he wasn't. A self-made man living in his mother's house. From down the hall, I heard a sound. Her bedroom door opened. I didn't look up. I couldn't face her. I heard soft footsteps. Then the sound of the front door opening. A pause. And then it closed. Not a slam. A quiet, precise click. The sound of a door locking. I just sat there, in the silence she left behind, surrounded by the proof of my own ignorance, my arrogance. The house was so still, so empty. I had gotten what I wanted. I had the house to myself again, and it felt like the most hollow victory in the world. I keep wondering how many other people are living inside a lie they created for themselves. I'm sitting here in Dallas, in a house that owns me more than I own it. I'm trying to find the courage to even move from this chair. I wonder how many of you have ever had a truth hit you so hard it changes the air you breathe. Let me know what city you're in. Tell me I'm not the only one sitting in the dark, rethinking every single thing I thought was true. I sat in that kitchen chair for what felt like hours. The cold from the wood seeped through my jeans. My legs were numb. I just stared at the papers. Susan A. Matthews. Susan A. Matthews. Her name was on every line. It was like a song I couldn't get out of my head. A bad song. A song that made me feel sick. My phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up. It was Nicole. Her name flashed. A little picture of her smiling. I didn't pick it up. I couldn't. What would I even say? Hey, guess what? The house you think is so old and stuffy? It's my mom's. I'm a fraud. The buzzing stopped. The screen went dark. The silence came back, even heavier than before. I thought about all the times I'd bragged to her, to my friends, at the brokerage. I'd stand by the coffee machine and talk about equity. I'd mention my mortgage rate like it was a trophy. I was so proud of my investment. I felt my face get hot with shame. It was a burning feeling right under my skin. I was a real estate broker. I was supposed to know about deeds and titles. I read them for clients every day. But I never once looked at my own. I just trusted the story, my story. I finally pushed myself up from the chair. My body felt stiff like an old man's. I walked slowly through the house. I ran my hand along the wall. The gray paint felt smooth. I remembered picking the color. Slate reflection, the can said. I thought it looked sophisticated. Now it just looked like a gray wall. Nothing special. I walked into the living room. The couch was angled perfectly toward the big TV. My mom had moved it a few days ago. She said it would get less glare from the window. I had moved it right back. I told her I liked it my way. Now I looked at the faint marks on the hardwood floor where she had slid it. I could see her logic. The light was better there. She was right. I went down the hall to her room. The door was closed. I put my hand on the cool wood of the door. I didn't open it. I was too much of a coward. What would I find? An empty room? All her things gone? Or would her suitcase still be on the bed half packed? I leaned my forehead against the door. I could smell her perfume, a faint floral scent. It was still in the air. My mind flashed back to the fight, her face, the way it just fell. The light went out of her eyes. I told her she didn't belong here, in her own house. The words echoed in my head. They were so ugly, so final. I replayed her reaction. She didn't yell, she didn't cry. She just got quiet, and she said she was sorry. She was sorry, after I screamed at her in the home she bought for me. I thought about my dad. He was a quiet man too. He worked with his hands. He always said, "Son, you build your own future." I took that so literally. I thought it meant doing everything alone. I never let anyone help me. Except I did. I took her money. I just convinced myself it was a small gift, a helping hand. I never let myself see the whole picture. I walked back to the kitchen. The papers were still there. I picked up the deed again. This time, I looked at the notary stamp, the date. It was signed a week before closing. She must have gone to the title company herself. She sat in some office and signed these papers. She planned this whole thing. She wanted me to have this life. She wanted me to feel like I'd earned it, and I threw it all back in her face. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Nicole. "Everything okay? You've been quiet." I stared at the words. How could I explain this? My girlfriend, who complained about my mom's presence? The woman who made the house feel old? I felt a sudden, sharp anger at Nicole. It wasn't fair, but it was there. She had fed my annoyance. She had nodded when I complained. She made me feel justified. I didn't text back. I opened the refrigerator. The light was too bright. It hurt my eyes. There, on the top shelf, was a plate of food covered in plastic wrap. My mom had made a meatloaf, my favorite. She left a plate for me before everything. I took it out. The plate was cold in my hands. I peeled back the plastic. It looked perfect. She always made it with a little brown sugar in the ketchup glaze. I put the plate on the counter. I couldn't eat it. The thought of food made my stomach turn. This simple, kind act felt like an accusation. She was taking care of me, even after I was a monster to her. Who does that? I had to find her. I had to talk to her. But where would she go? Her apartment was being repaired. That's why she was here. Did she have friends in Dallas? She'd only lived here a few months since moving from Chicago. I didn't even know her friends' names. I realized I knew nothing about her life here. I was so wrapped up in my own world. I grabbed my keys from the bowl by the door. My hand was shaking. I was going to go look for her, drive around, check the motels, something. But as my fingers touched the cold metal of the keys, I froze. What would I say when I found her? Sorry wasn't a big enough word. It was a tiny, stupid word for what I had done. I dropped the keys. They clattered on the counter. The sound was too loud in the quiet house. I was right back where I started, standing in the kitchen of a house that wasn't mine, a house that held all my mistakes. The truth was a physical weight on my chest. It was hard to breathe. I had spent my whole life building an image of myself, the self-made man from Dallas, and in one night, my mom's simple, quiet love had torn it all down. I don't know what hurts more, losing the lie I told myself or realizing the incredible person I took for granted. Have you ever been so wrong about someone that it changes who you are? I'm still here in this kitchen. The meatloaf is still on the counter, and I have no idea what to do next. I didn't move from that spot for a long time. I just stared at the meatloaf on the counter. The ketchup glaze had congealed. It looked like a prop from a movie, a symbol of something I'd broken.
The house was so quiet. I could hear the low hum of the central air kicking on. A car door slammed outside, somewhere down the street. A normal sound in a world that wasn't normal anymore. My phone buzzed again. Nicole. I let it go to voicemail. I couldn't talk to her. Her voice, her opinions, they were part of the problem. She saw my mom as a nuisance, an obstacle to our perfect modern life. And I let her. I encouraged it. She made me feel justified. I didn't text back. I'd come home from work and complain, and Nicole would rub my shoulders and say, "She'll be gone soon, baby." We were a team against my own mother. The thought made me nauseous. I had to do something. I couldn't just stand here. I picked up my keys again. This time I didn't drop them. I walked to the front door and opened it. The night air hit me. It was cool. Dallas can get a real chill at night, even after a hot day. I stood on my porch, her porch, and looked out at the street. The neatly trimmed lawns, the expensive cars and driveways. I wondered how many of my neighbors were living a lie too. How many of them were pretending. I got in my car. The leather seat was cold. The engine started with a quiet purr. Another thing I was proud of. Another thing I probably couldn't truly afford without her. I backed out of the driveway. The headlights swept across the front of the house. It looked so solid, so permanent, a monument to my shame. I drove aimlessly at first, just turning left, then right. I didn't have a plan. I passed the shopping center with the fancy grocery store she liked. I passed the park where she sometimes went for a walk in the mornings. I was looking for her car, a sensible silver sedan. I scanned every parking lot, every side street. Nothing. My mind was racing. Where would she go? She didn't have a lot of money. I knew that now. She'd sunk everything into my house. Her apartment was uninhabitable. A burst pipe, she'd said. Was that even true? Or was it just an excuse to come stay with me, to be closer? I felt a fresh wave of guilt. Had she been lonely? I never asked. I was too busy being important. I found myself driving toward the older part of Dallas, where the neighborhoods are a little less polished, where the bungalows have character. I remembered her mentioning a friend from her church, Betty. She lived around here somewhere. I'd never paid enough attention to get an address. I just drove slowly, peering at house numbers, feeling hopeless. Then I saw it, parked under a streetlight 2 blocks down. A silver sedan, her car. It was pulled over to the curb in front of a small blue house with a chain-link fence. The lights were on inside the house. I could see figures moving behind the curtains. My heart started pounding. This was it. She was here. I pulled over a few houses down and killed the engine. Now what? What was my speech? "Hey, Mom, sorry I'm a colossal jerk. Can we go home?" It sounded pathetic even in my head. I watched the house. The front door opened. An older woman with white hair stepped out onto the porch. She waved at someone inside. Then my mom appeared in the doorway. She was holding a small overnight bag. She hugged the woman, Betty, I assumed. It was a long hug. I saw my mom's shoulders shake. She was crying. I sank down in my seat. I felt like a stalker, a voyeur to my own destruction. I couldn't get out of the car. I couldn't interrupt that moment. She was getting comfort from someone else because I had failed her so completely. She pulled away from the hug and wiped her eyes. She looked so small standing there on that stranger's porch. She looked tired, old. I'd never thought of my mom as old before. She was always just Mom. But seeing her there, in the harsh glow of the porch light, I saw the lines on her face, the way she held herself, a little stooped. How had I missed that? She turned and walked to her car. She didn't see me. She got in and started the engine. Her brake lights glowed red in the darkness. She was leaving. She was going somewhere. A hotel, probably? Some cheap place she could afford because she'd given all her money to her ungrateful son. She pulled away from the curb. I sat there, frozen, watching her taillights disappear around the corner. I had my chance. I was 10 feet away from her, and I did nothing. I let her drive off into the night, alone. I started my car again. My hands were trembling on the wheel. I didn't follow her. What was the point? I had no words. Instead, I drove back to the house, my prison, my gift. When I walked back inside, the silence was worse. It felt judgmental. I went straight to her room. I finally turned the knob and pushed the door open. The room was tidy.
The bed was made. The nightstand was clear, but her suitcase was open on the luggage rack. It was half full. Clothes were folded neatly inside. A hairbrush sat next to it. She hadn't taken everything. She'd only packed enough for a night or two. She was planning to come back. That was the worst part. She thought this was temporary, a little cooling off period. She had no idea that for me, everything had changed forever. She was coming back to the same son, but that son was gone. He'd been erased by a signature on a piece of paper. I sat on the edge of her bed. It smelled like her, that floral perfume. I picked up the hairbrush. There were a few strands of her gray hair caught in the bristles. This was real. This was her life, intertwined with mine in this house I claimed as my own. I thought about calling my sister, Jessica. She lived in Phoenix. What would I say? Hey, Jess, guess what? Mom owns my house, and I just screamed at her until she left. Jessica had always been closer to Mom. She'd see this for what it was. She'd see me for what I was. I put the hairbrush down. I left her room and closed the door behind me, leaving it exactly as I found it. I walked back into the kitchen. The plate of meatloaf was still there. I picked it up. I peeled back the plastic wrap. I got a fork from the drawer. I stood there at the counter and I took a bite. It was cold. The texture was a little rubbery, but it tasted like my childhood. It tasted like safety. And I started to cry. Right there, standing in the kitchen with a mouthful of cold meatloaf. I cried for my dad, who I missed every day. I cried for my mom, who I had hurt so deeply. And I cried for the man I thought I was, the man who never really existed at all. The truth is a wrecking ball. It doesn't just knock down a wall. It shatters the whole foundation. And you're left standing in the rubble, wondering how you ever thought it was solid to begin with. I'm standing in my rubble here in Dallas. Is anyone else out there sifting through the pieces of a life they thought they knew? I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table until the sun came up. The meatloaf was gone. I'd eaten every cold, congealed bite. It felt like penance. When morning light finally streamed through the windows, I knew what I had to do. First, I called Nicole. She answered on the first ring, her voice tight with concern. "Brian, where have you been? I've been worried sick." "I found out something last night," I said, my voice rough, "about the house, about my mom." I told her everything. The deed, the down payment, the truth. There was a long silence on the other end. "Wow," she finally said. "So all this time?" "All this time," I confirmed. "I need to fix this, Nicole, and I need to do it alone." She didn't argue. She just said, "Okay." There was disappointment in her voice, but maybe some understanding too. We hung up, and I knew that chapter of my life was closing. Next, I called my office. I told them I had a family emergency and wouldn't be for a few days. My boss understood. Then I did the hardest thing. I called my sister. Jessica answered with her usual cheerful, "Hey, big brother." I took a deep breath. "Jess, I messed up, really bad." I told her the whole story, the fight, the papers, our mom leaving. I didn't try to make myself look good. I gave her the ugly truth. When I finished, there was only silence. Then she said quietly,
Brian, how could you? I don't know, I whispered. I was stupid and selfish and blind. Yes, you were, she said, not unkindly. But Mom, she never wanted you to know. She made me promise not to tell you. That hit me like a punch to the gut. You knew? Of course I knew, she said. After Dad died, she wanted to do something for you, something big. She used his life insurance money. She said you were struggling to get started in Dallas, and she wanted to give you a foundation. I leaned my head against the wall, closing my eyes. Why didn't she tell me? Because she knew you, Brian. She knew you'd never accept it if you knew the truth. You had to believe you'd done it yourself. The irony was so thick I could taste it.
My self-made success was her carefully constructed gift. Where is she, Jess? Do you know? She texted me this morning. She's at the Motel 6 off the highway. She said she just needs a couple of days to figure things out. I wrote down the address. I'm going to fix this. You'd better, she said. And Brian, be gentle with her. She's been protecting you your whole life. I showered and put on clean clothes. I looked at myself in the mirror. The confident broker was gone. In his place was just a son who had failed his mother. The drive to the motel felt like the longest of my life. It was one of those generic places off the interstate, with cracked pavement and faded signs. I found her car parked near room 114. I knocked softly. The door opened a few inches, the chain still on. My mom peered out. Her eyes were puffy, her hair messy. She looked like she hadn't slept either. "Brian?" she said, her voice cautious. "Can I come in, Mom?" She hesitated, then closed the door to undo the chain. When she opened it again, she stepped back to let me enter. The room was small and smelled like stale cigarettes. Her suitcase sat open on one of the double beds. A half-eaten sandwich from a vending machine sat on the nightstand. "I'm so sorry," I blurted out. The words felt inadequate, but they were all I had. She sat on the edge of the bed, her hands folded in her lap. "You don't have to apologize." "Yes, I do," I said, sitting in the cheap desk chair across from her. "I was horrible to you, in our house, your house." She looked down at her hands. "It's your house, Brian. I gave it to you." "But you didn't," I said gently. "You let me believe it was mine, but you never actually signed it over. The deed is still in your name." She looked up, her eyes wide. "You went through my papers?" "I saw the folder on the counter," I admitted. I was angry and I looked. I saw everything. Tears filled her eyes. "I never meant for you to find out. I was going to transfer the title when I was sure you were settled, when you wouldn't give it back to me out of pride." "Why, Mom?" My voice broke. "Why would you do that for me? Why wouldn't you tell me?" She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "After your father died, you were so lost. You moved to Dallas with nothing. I saw how hard you were working, how much you wanted to prove yourself. I had the money from his insurance. It was just sitting in the bank. I thought, why not give my son the head start his father would have wanted him to have? But you sacrificed everything," I said. "Your financial security, your independence." She gave me a small, sad smile. "That's what parents do, Brian. We want better for our children than we had for ourselves." I moved from the chair to sit beside her on the bed. I took her hand. It felt small and fragile in mine. "I don't deserve this," I whispered. "I don't deserve you." "Love isn't about deserving," she said softly. "It's just love." We sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the motel air conditioner filling the room. "I want you to come home," I said finally. "It's your home more than it's mine, and I want you to feel welcome there. To water the plants whenever you want, to move the furniture, to ask my clients a million questions." She smiled through her tears. "I do tend to ask a lot of questions. That's who you are," I said, "and I love who you are. I'm sorry I ever made you feel like you needed to be anything else." She squeezed my hand. "I'll come home, but on one condition." "Anything." "The house stays in my name," she said firmly, "but we'll draw up proper paperwork. You'll pay me rent, market rate, and that money goes into an account for your future, for when you really do buy your own house someday." I stared at her. Even now, even after everything, she was still looking out for me. still trying to teach me, to guide me. Okay, I said quietly. That sounds fair. We packed her things together. I carried her suitcase to the car. As we drove home, the silence between us was comfortable now, healing. When we walked back into the house, it felt different, lighter. The walls didn't feel like they were judging me anymore. The first thing I did was move the living room couch back to where she had placed it. The angle was better. There was less glare from the window. She smiled when she saw it, a real, genuine smile that reached her eyes. That was 6 months ago. Things are different now. Nicole and I broke up, amicably. She wanted a different life than the one I was building. My mom still lives with me, but now it feels like we're roommates, partners. I pay her rent every month, and she puts it in a savings account she showed me the statements for. We have dinner together most nights. Sometimes we talk about Dad. Sometimes we just watch old movies. I still work in real estate, but I'm different with my clients now. I'm more patient, more understanding. I know that behind every house, there's a story. Behind every deed, there's a dream. The other day, I came home to find my mom in the backyard planting flowers. She had dirt on her hands and a sun hat on her head. "Your father always said I had a green thumb," she said, smiling up at me. I helped her plant the last of the petunias. We stood back to admire our work as the sun set over Dallas. "This is a good home," she said quietly. "Yeah," I agreed, putting my arm around her shoulders. "It is." Because a home isn't about whose name is on the deed. It's about whose hearts are inside the walls. It's about forgiveness and second chances and the quiet, steady love that rebuilds what pride tears down. I thought I had built myself from nothing, but the truth is, we all stand on the foundations others built for us. The greatest strength isn't in building alone. It's in having the courage to acknowledge the hands that helped lift you up. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to rebuild after your own truth came crashing down, let me know. Hit that like button, leave a comment about what family means to you, and subscribe for more real stories about real life. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.